The Commission on Elections will now require all entities conducting and publishing election surveys to register with its Political Finance and Affairs Department. Under Comelec Resolution number 11117, only pre-registered firms can conduct and release survey results to the public. Existing survey firms have a 15-day grace period from the resolution's effectivity to complete the registration. Survey firms must also submit a comprehensive report to Comelec within 5 days of publication, detailing funding sources, conducting organizations, survey methodology, margin of error, and providing access to raw data for verification.
And now, speaking of surveys, the OCTA Research recently released one on party lists. AXIS topped the poll, followed by 4Ps, Duterte Youth, FPJ Panday Bayanihan, and Tingog. Contradaya last week flagged that all these top contenders either have links to political dynasties or have dubious advocacies. AXIS, for instance, is connected to the Tulfos, while FPJ Panday is led by the son of Senator Grace Poe. Tingog is connected to the Romualdez clan. A total of 155 party list groups are vying for seats in this year's elections.
Let's talk more about surveys and the new Comelec resolution.
We have Professor Guido David of the OCTA Research Group joining us now via Zoom. Good morning again, Prof. Thanks for joining us.
Yes, hi, good morning.
Prof, looking at the survey you released on the party list system, what trends do we see that really stands out? Kasi ang nakikita ko sa mga top, puro mga hindi na talaga representing the marginalized. We have the bigger party lists in the top. So ano ang take mo dito, Prof?
Well, that's a good point, and unfortunately, ganun nga yung nagiging trend na we have to ask the question, is the party list system still upholding yung original intent natin for the party list system, which is to represent the marginalized people? Kasi, we have the Congress and the Senate is supposed to represent the people. And that's why we vote them in. Meron tayong representative for each district, for each province, for each major municipality or HUC. And kung may representation na tayo, yun nga, nagkakaroon ba ng duplication of representation? Are we over-representing certain groups and not representing marginalized groups? Like, for example, yung mga, let's say, mga ATAs or yung mga other, minority groups, meron pa ba silang natitirang representation? I think that was the original intent of the party list system, pero ganun pa rin ba nangyayari na they still get the representation or it's just now another popularity vote na those who are popular and those associated with popular personalities like minsan may mga celebrity endorsers, mga influencers, and they will get votes, and yun nga, are they representing marginalized? Maybe some of them are, but I think at some point we have to look at yun nga, yung intent and yung or at least yung party list system, if it's still upholding the original intent of the 87 Constitution.
You're right there, Prof. Sa bottom part ng survey nyo, doon mo makikita yung mga some of the yung mga tunay na party list. Now, speaking of the bottom dwellers, Prof, we all know yung computation natin for the party list to take seats in Congress. Meron certain number of percent ng votes of registered voters kailangan makuha. But sometimes, previously in the last elections, hindi man nangyayari yun. Ang nangyayari sa last elections, kulang ng number of seats. So therefore, kahit hindi umabot ang ibang party list, binibigyan ng upuan. Now, sino ang mga notable sa bottom nakikita niyo, Prof, na possibly, pag hindi na puno ang seats, baka makapasok pa sa mga progressive groups?
Well, that's a very good question. And yung sa bottom, actually, dahil sa margin of error natin, is 3%. Yung mga nasa bottom, even those with 0%, 0.1%, they could still get in. Pero may mga, that's a question I can't answer offhand immediately dahil may mga support system sila na hindi ma-reflect sa survey. Let's say yung mga, of course, traditionally yung mga Makabayan Bloc, etc., they will have their own base of support. So kailangan talaga may base of support para makapasok, even if they're at the bottom of the group. But if those naman na may iba naman, yung base of support nila is regional eh. Di ba? Meron tayong mga nakikita, like ako, Bicol is one of the top. But these are more of regional type of base of support. Parang, okay, hindi naman nila represent yung Region 5, yung Bicol region, but they're all over the Philippines, representing yung mga maybe Bicolanos from all over the Philippines. So now it comes back to being more of a regional type of representation. So yes, merong mga, I rather would not mention mga certain baka sabihin na may bias ako sa may endorsement ako. In fact, I know some of them have good intents. I've talked to some of these I would like to endorse them nga yung some of the other groups, but yun nga.
Okay. Pero Prof, seeing all of these surveys right now, particularly nga itong mga party list, nakikita mo talaga na ang laki ng binago ng landscape ng mga party list group natin as compared in the last 10 years, No? Case in point, ang Bayan Muna. 'Di ba? Early 2000 up until 2013 to 2014, lagi silang may mga upuan doon. Pero ngayon wala na, 'di ba? Halos talagang hanging sila sa sinulid, ika nga. What do you think happened there? What were the contributing factors to this kind of change?
Well, Angela, yung mga traditional groups, minsan even the teacher, I think yun nga, nag-change yung mga landscape and na-ease out ito mga party lists which have a certain support na very traditional, and ngayon yun nga nag-shift to something more more modern, yung mga may malakas na presence kanya sa social media or sa online now are getting more support, and that has shifted. And again, comes back to the question, are the party lists still representing what they're supposed to represent?
Oo. Bago nyo po nilabas ng OCTA Group itong survey na to, parang 2 weeks ago, meron din nilabas ang Kontradaya flagging these top party lists, sinasabi ng mga merong dubious advocacies or they belong to political dynasties, and yet sila pa rin yung number 1.
Yes, and maybe the Comelec should look into that. Yung mga, because it's the Comelec's oversight to look at these yung mga parties, yung mga tumatakbo. Firstly, yung intent ba nila? Because anybody can write an intent na, okay, ito yung intent nitong party list nito. Pero nagagawa ba nila? Pag titingnan din natin yung mga nasa Congress ngayon, yung mga yung track record ng ibang party list na ito, nagagawa ba nila? Natutulungan ba nila yung support, yung group na they're advocating to support, or hindi lang din? And then kung ganun, we just go back to the yung parang district party or district congressional representation.
Prof, before we move on to other topics, I'd like to touch on also yung ginawa ni President Duterte during his term by consistently red tagging several traditional party list groups. Now, do you think ito ang one of the main contributors para karamihan sa kanila ay bumagsak in popularity, and that the youth of today just simply don't see the relevance and are looking at more traditional progressive groups as komunista sila eh. Do you think may epekto yan?
Kontrabulate lang sa gobyerno, parang ganun.
Definitely naka-affect yan. We've seen nag-shift na yung political spectrum since 2016 nung naupo na si former President Duterte. And yun nga, parang somehow medyo na-taint yung certain alliances or certain groups, and hindi na sila masyado naka-recover. And we still see that today na parang medyo hirap sila maka-recover. And I'm not saying it's the end of it, but maybe there needs to be a new shift Because as we are seeing it now, I mean, based on our own surveys, marami rin naman yung mga independent voters. So if they're not, if they're independent and they don't adhere to certain groups or parties, then technically they should be more open-minded to, to
Yeah.
these progressive groups. Pero yun na nga, baka minsan pag I mean, just like sa marketing, pag may isang brand na medyo tainted na yung brand na yun, parang, okay, ba't ka bibili ng brand yan? Gawa yan sa Bolate or something like that. Then suddenly, di ba, yung parang mahirap na makarecover yung brand na yun.
Right.
Unless maganda yung marketing ng brand na yun, na they can somehow flip that.
Okay. So, kanina nabanggit niyo po, Prof, yung Comelec. So, I would like to ask na lang po your reaction doon sa Comelec resolution on registration ng mga sinosurvey o nagpapasurvey for that instance.
Well, yes, OCTA Research, you know naman na is a credible organization. We haven't been around as long as some of the other major survey firms, pero we always believe in supporting whatever yung guidelines and yung policies are. So as far as this is concerned, we will abide by the guidelines and yung registration. Of course, and we understand the intent of it. It's to prevent disinformation or spreading disinformation. Lalo na ngayon, in fact, marami naglalabas ng mga fake surveys. Kami mismo, victim kami.
Yeah.
Naglabas ng fake na
Kanya-kanya
OCTA
silang
Research.
survey.
Kanya-kanya. Anybody can say na, may ganitong survey. And then, marami in fact, sobrang dami ng mga survey companies na hindi ko na ma-track down lahat ng mga,
Yes, that's right.
mga lumalabas na. Dati, may wala ako nakita survey companies. Of course, lumabas kami. But, aside from us, maybe may mga nakita ko mga 10 other. And, maybe the Comelec just wants to, monitor and protect yung pag-disseminate ng information and ng false.
Idagdag ko lang to, kasi I've always been curious about paano ginagawa ng mga survey companies o paano nila tina-target yung different locations or areas ng kanilang sinusurvey. Like, for example, never pa ako na-survey in my entire life, yung mga ganon. And in this particular survey, sa mga party list na survey nyo sa OCTA, which area yung na-survey ninyo, and what was the question pala when you asked when you did this survey?
Yes, actually yung question pinapublish naman namin whenever it's publicly released na survey result. Andun mismo yung question. So usually parang ang line of question is, and may English version, may Filipino version. Here are a few names. Here is a list of party lists, and if the election were conducted today, which would you vote for? Parang ganun. So yun yung it's just fairly a standard question, and ang dun is yun nga, the methodology is naman. Yung methodology namin is very statistical. It's randomly sampled and multi-stage random sampling. So of course, like with any of course, nabanggit ko kanina, yung intent ng, going back to the Comelec, the intent is good, but of course we also want to protect mga institutions from overexertion ng and we can see that it can happen in other countries na sometimes the government can overexert itself, and pag maging extreme masyado yung exertion niya, it could lead to loss of freedom of expression.
That's right.
Kumbaga, you're preventing disinformation, but at the same time, in the process, baka we're also limiting yung expression of information.
That's right.
And it can happen din with broadcasting companies, diba? Kayo, if there's government control on what you can say or what you can't say, then it limits our what we can do and what we can share with the public. And of course, this could be a concern, because even if the current government has good intents on certain laws, we want to project and think into the future what if a different government, maupo, and then
That's right.
they can kumaga, we want to have checks and balances lagi, and that's why we think not only of the current system or of the current government, but we project into the future. What if a different government sits, and then they might, if they sort of tend to abuse this policy or this requirement or this law, then mawawala na yung checks and balances natin, and it becomes imbalanced.
Prof, touching upon that also, kasi I think Comelec is coming from certain surveys that have come out that are completely different from the more credible ones like yourself and the other big companies. So parang when they're looking into it, meron specific candidates, they're tailor-making questions that will fit their needs para pag lumabas sa survey, sila ang out on top. So my question is, para for clarity lang, Prof, may mga fake na OCTA na lumabas kasi. I've seen them sa social media. Do you accept commission surveys from politicians?
Yes, of course. It could be from politicians. It could be from third party, private organizations. And actually, a lot of yung mga survey results ay hindi naman nire-release sa public because especially commissioned ones. Because yung mga nagpa-commission, they spend money on this data gathering. And kung i-share lang nila sa public yung outcome, parang nagbayad sila, but they don't have exclusive access to it. Part of it is they're paying for exclusivity. And pero sometimes, the commission survey result gets leaked. And then it becomes a question of sino yung commission nito. Baka siya yung connected siya kaya malakas yung candidate. So we understand, of course, the intent of the Comelec again. Parang...
So quickly lang, Prof. So para malinaw lang sa viewers natin, the intent really of the survey pag pinapakomisyon ng isang kandidato is for marketing purposes para alam niya saan niya ilalagay ang pera niya sa campaign.
Yes. It's to guide the campaign strategies. Yun naman talaga. It's for information ng end user. Hindi naman siya generally to be released to the public. Sometimes, may mga nagli-leak, lalo na kung maganda yung results
Mind
nila.
conditioning daw, Prof.
Sino kaya nag-leak? Sino kaya nag-leak, Prof? Sila din?
Baka sila, baka third party na share nila sa iba, tapos may ibang nag-leak, or baka iba, marites lang talaga, gusto lang mag-share. So may ganun lang naman nangyayari.
Alright, maraming salamat po sa inyong oras, Professor Guido David of the OCTA Research Group. Thank you so much for joining us again.
Thank you and good morning.